is a week-long event filled with media interview, parties, sponsorship parties, and different events just to prop up the game day experience. So on the game day itself, there's usually different activities that are lined up for the day. Most of it will mirror what you see on a typical game day, but there are some distinctions that makes the day special, which we would speak to during this episode. So let's look at a typical game day on Super Bowl Sunday. A typical game day starts with media interview. The media people will be around interviewing some players, highlighting family members, and different interesting activities like that. And then the game proper would start with the national anthem. Now, the national anthem is a significant part of professional games in America. But the national anthem rendition on Super Bowl takes precedence and carries a lot of importance. And we've historically seen great performances from famed artists on Super Bowl Sunday. An example of this was a rendition by Whitney Houston that is famed to be one of the best ever. We've had Chris Stapleton and a lot of other famous artists sing the national anthem.
That's right. And bright stars through the perilous fight. Oh, the ramparts we walked were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular of Mossberg singing up, yeah, through the night that our flag was still there.
There's also the Black National Anthem that is sung as part of activities for the day. For this year, Charlie Puth will be singing the national anthem, while Coco Jones will be singing the Black National Anthem. So after the national anthem, next we have the player introduction. So players on both teams will be introduced to the fans and to the whole world and to everybody watching the game. And then next, we have the flyover. So the flyover is also an interesting part of the game. Is one of my favorite game day experience, either in the NFL or in the college level. The flyover is typically carried out by military personnel, and they would bring out the best of their performances on game day. We've had the B-12 flyover, we've had choppers and a lot of other interesting aircraft flyover during the game. There's the flyover, which is heralded by the fan, and then next is the coin toss. So the coin toss is to determine which team starts the game or which team gets possession of the ball first. Heads, tail, we typically get to see this announced at the beginning of the game. After the coin toss, the game would start, and as we know, football is made up of 4 quarters, split into 2 halves: first half, halftime, and second half. So the Super Bowl also mirrors these. The first half of 2 quarters is played, and then halftime break is observed. Now, halftime is what makes the Super Bowl special, because during the halftime performance, there are two events that happen: the halftime show and the Super Bowl commercials. We'll speak extensively to the halftime show, but let's look at the other concluding parts of the game day experience. After the halftime show, the two teams will return back to the field to conclude the game. And at the end of regulation time, if there's no winner, both teams will go into overtime to determine who the champion would be. After the champion has been determined on the field of play, next we proceed to trophy presentation, and then the Super Bowl MVP is also awarded to the player that had the best performance on the field. So that's what a typical game day experience looks like, and I hope as you also watch the Super Bowl on Sunday, you get to enjoy this as well. So, so we've seen what a typical game day looks like, and we know about the football part. It's made up of 4 quarters, 2 halves. The running back is trying to get the ball. The quarterback is trying to pass the ball. The defense is trying to stop the quarterback. So everybody knows about the typical football experience. But what makes the Super Bowl special and unique and gets people to watch a lot is the halftime performance. Now, the halftime performance is unique because on an annual basis, the organizers of the Super Bowl brings the best of the best artists in the world to come perform at the halftime show. The performance draws a lot of viewers, going in the millions. And as we saw last year, when Kendrick Lamar performed, viewership was estimated at about 133 million, which was an increase to what we've seen in the previous years. So the halftime performance is so important to people, and because of this, companies also try to leverage on the viewership. So before we get into our halftime performance, we'll look at how companies make the most of the halftime show. Companies do this through Super Bowl commercials. Commercial is a 30-second ad that is run on the TV during Super Bowl halftime. Now, this 30-second commercial typically costs company around an average of about $8 million. So you ask yourself, why would any company want to spend $8 million on a 30-second ad? It's because of the viewership. Like I mentioned earlier, Super Bowl at halftime records more than 100 million people. And companies use that opportunity to introduce some of their flagship products to the viewers. In 1984, Apple introduced the Macintosh through a Super Bowl halftime commercial. Other companies have also done this: Doritos, Coca-Cola, Snicker, Pfizer, electric vehicle companies, and a host of other companies have tried to make the most of the Super Bowl halftime and the viewership to get its products to the face of the consumers. So the other significant part of the halftime is performance from superstars. Historically, Super Bowl has had great performance from famed artists. We had Michael Jackson perform in 1993. We had Prince perform in a heavy downpour in Miami in 2007, which has arguably been referred to as the best Super Bowl performance. We had Dr. Dre, Snoop, and his crew perform in 2022 in LA. We've had Rihanna come out of retirement to perform. We've had Usher. So halftime performance is usually a very significant part of the game, and a time when both football fans and non-football fans come out to watch the Super Bowl. The halftime performance typically lasts around 12 to 15 minutes, after which the stage and other effects are taken off for the players to come back to the field. For this year's halftime performance, Bad Bunny, a Puerto Rican American, will be the one performing this year.